Hey guys, this is Mikro here. I'm making a video again, this time talking about some of the updates to, I'd say, meta for supportish style of play, and then some of the ults and like how people have like changed with using those, as well as like throwing up some of my gameplay from East, and I'm gonna try to release more of that East stuff, just probably on a delay. But it seems like a decent amount of people are publishing East VODs and they're easier to find at this point, so I don't think that there's a huge point in hiding them as long as I don't highlight the main shot calling comms, because I don't want people to be able to counter some of the strategies that we're doing. But in terms of how stuff has changed, I'd say a lot of the things that I kind of predicted early on with this patch coming turned out to be fairly true. I'd say BBVG, like Blunderbuss Void Gauntlet, is in a good spot. It's in a, I'd say it's in a bit of a better spot than I originally thought, just due to Ice Gauntlet just getting completely shafted. Uh, I can link some of the videos about Ice Gauntlet into the description, but there's like basically only two ways to run Ice Gauntlet at this point, because Ultimate Chill is both bugged and nerfed, as well as Storm is being bugged and nerfed, as well as a couple other weird interactions, but those are mostly dealing with new gems, which overall don't seem to be worth it this patch, but will be better in the PTR, because in live they do comparable damage to tier 2, but then they, with some abilities being more and some like basic attacks maybe being less, it's like situational, and I don't want to go into the numbers because it's just kind of gross. But the thing you need to know about that is you don't really need the new gems in your weapons right now, and then in the next patch you'll probably want them in your weapons, because those dots will contribute to ult charge, and ultimately right now ult charge seems to be the biggest factor in like winning comp fights and wars. In terms of like what ults people are using, I think there is a bit of a shift, which is nice to see, and it's not just the same two that we thought it would be at the start. I think everyone at the start thought everyone was just gonna use the brutal grasping vines and then detonate. We're in a spot now where I think more people are picking up stone form and realizing how strong this is, as well as I think this is probably going to be the one of the most popular alts very shortly, just by the ability to not get staggered. And I have a variety of situations that have happened in recent wars where I've just been able to cut my deaths in almost like a fourth to a fifth of them, just because of this ultimate and how strong it is. So I think it's definitely worth looking at, but vines are still very strong, detonate is still very strong, and it's just sort of situational when you want to go for which ult. Like on attack, at the beginning, vines and detonate are nice to get those first 2 points, but then when it gets to fort, almost everyone needs to be running stalwart, or greater stone form just to actually survive getting into the fort, just due to defender's advantage of them being able to farm ultimates off the target dummies, which is something that should be fixed, and I am surprised it's not, but as it's in the game, it will be either exploited or used as a intended feature, depending on your angle. And both offense people and defense people could use that, so it's definitely something worth looking at if you have not realized that's a thing, and helps people a lot. But in terms of builds as a support player, IGVG is still played. It is being played less. VGBB is seeming to pick up steam. I think VGBB is playable in light, medium, and heavy at this point. Especially if you go for the fire gems, it just makes it an absolute beast of a role to kill people with. And then you also have the setup that I typically run on this account, which is more tank oriented, where I have a lot of slash resistance, as you can see, because people like to swing on me, because I got this amulet for cheaper than normal, and this account has a little bit more gold, so I get to have fun with stuff. But I'm just stacking freedom, basically, try not to get one-shot by combos. I'm in heavy, so I don't really need the shirking fort, and freedom's just overall very nice. With the terms of VGBB, the benefit of it, of course, like I think I've talked about this before, but you have more like crowd control, I'd say, and more impact on the clump. A lot of the IG stuff is good, but at this point,
almost everything in IG's kit is kind of pad, and I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record because I said this before on last patch, but with Ultimate Chill being nerfed, it's like your Ice Gauntlet utility is basically just the shower, and then you have the Entomb to keep yourself alive. Problem with Entomb is it's bugged right now, so it only works maybe half to, let's say, 3/4 of the time, and then the other bit of the time you'll use Entomb, and it won't actually do anything, and you'll just die because you thought you had Entomb up, but you don't actually have Entomb up, so Ice Gauntlet is also falling out of favor because of that bug, and may regain a little bit of popularity if or when it's fixed. I'd say there's two ways to like run Ice Gauntlet if you're running it right now. This is the if you're a more tanky setup, this is the what people run. Uh little bit of insider knowledge with this, but Ice Pylon charges ults almost twice as fast as any other ability in the game, as in you'll get ult about every 20 to 30 seconds, and most other combos you'll get ult every 60 seconds. So that's why a lot of people like Ice Pylon. I don't think it's bugged, it's just the way that Ice Pylon interacts with the game is different. And then on top of that, Ice Storm is also bugged, and Punishing Storm doesn't work if you have one of those new gems. But most people just slot an Opal in anyway in Ice Gauntlet, so it doesn't matter that much. But I'd say this is a way to run Ice Gauntlet. It's better if you're like 300 con. And then the other way that we've been looking at Ice Gauntlet is being run something like this, which seems weird, and some of these points are flexible, like the crit chance I think is flexible. I think Storm, this is nice if you have an Opal because it's just more damage, but I mean, when you look at this, it's like I don't have Ultimate Chill, so I'm like generally doing less damage. You're basically just playing for your shower and your Entomb, and then you have like some utility from Frozen Touch, and you have good cooldown reduction, but it's a lot less utility than it used to be. It's still a very good role, especially on defense, because you can prevent people from getting into the fort super easily with the Ice Shower. But Ice Shower by far is the best part of the Ice Gauntlet's kit at this point. And then you have some updates to it, like blocking stamina. They improved blocking a ton. It's to the point where if you get caught in a route, it's generally better to block than it is to try to iframe it, especially if you're in heavy and medium. I think it's borderline which one you do, and it's situational, but there's not really a punish from getting exhausted while blocking now, so blocking is very nice, and you don't have to really time it with abilities. So it tends to keep me alive more when I run IG VG to block more. I'd say I don't like the Ice Gauntlet as much as other people this patch, and have heavily moved towards the Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss because it fits my style better. But I think if you're really comfortable on Ice Gauntlet Void Gauntlet, if you're really comfortable on Blunderbuss Ice Gauntlet, there are ways to run it. This is more of a setup for IGVG, and then I'd say if you're IGVB, this is more of a popular setup. The Empowering Frost doesn't really matter, so you usually just cut that out. But Pylon is in a pretty good spot. I wouldn't say broken. I think next patch Pylon might be broken if it works off the Rune Glass gems and applies the dot with those, because then you're going to be charging ult even faster. So it might be like a thing with Pylon where you get like 10 to 20 second ults. But right now, Pylon makes ult charge significantly faster, which gives it a lot more utility inherently, because its Ice Storm is basically just pad at this point, since you're not applying Ultimate Chill. So that's the reason why people are starting to run more Ice Pylon. I wouldn't say it's like insane, but it's definitely like not a bad thing to run. And you see a lot of people in wars, if you look back at like VODs, like if you look at Willie's stream, or you find other VODs, I'd say the Ice Pylon's not being used off cooldown, but it's being used in spots where there's not much to do. Because if you use it off cooldown, you can get staggered and you can die. It can also break very easily, but there are times where people will just drop it on a dummy to farm ult. They'll drop it when there's not much going on for the refreshing frost, so that they can get their ice showers up more quickly, and it's overall pretty good. Void Gauntlet, I don't think has changed a lot. It's basically the same tree I was running before. Blade is in a lot better spot than it used to be. I just personally don't like Blade due to the way I run Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss, which I'd say there's a few ways to run it. The two main ways of like running this Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss, I'd say, is you go 150 strength, 150 int, and then you go for 200 con. Why do I have focus on? Is this focus? Yeah, I've got the wrong piece on there. I've got very similar pieces for the IG in Blunderbuss gear, just different attributes. But generally, people when they're running this setup, I'll pop the food just to make it easier to swap between the setups for this. But you have your standard 150 strength, 150 int, and then you go 200 con. This is like, and then you'd probably dump the rest into strength because it scales better with the blunderbuss, and you're mostly playing for the blunderbuss. This is like standard for setup for blunderbuss and wood gauntlet still. That has not changed. It's the safest way to play the class. It's still very, very good. It's popular, especially if you're involved in Deady Point at all. If you are very good at Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss and you find ways to live where most people die, if you are able to run this like with 200 strength, 150 int, 165 con, you will really feel the damage, especially if you have like fire damage rings and you have the fire damage boosting uh armor gems now with the rune glass. Like that will really pump, and it's probably the highest DPS build out there, I'd say. That's like also like fairly safe. Like there's a lot of the like fire stuff. Ice got a lot, I wouldn't say weaker, but it's like different now because the ice gauntlet you can't really use for the ice spike, and the empowering meteor shower doesn't swap to your ice gauntlet, so you can't abuse that for ice spike. It's just like it's not bad, but I wouldn't say it's good, and something people are looking away from. And Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss tends to do things very well. The main problem with Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss is you don't have like escape utility. But the really easy solution to that is you just go Stone Form, and then you'll stop dying, and then you'll have this insane output from your neutral game. But then you'll also be able to live very well with the Stone Form and use that to get out and save yourself. Like I'll probably go over one of the, or part of one of the East VODs I had from like yesterday, where I survive a triple melee group going on me because I popped this button and I just walk away. It is very strong, and all the stone forms are heavily underrated right now in my opinion. Even the one that's like a 3-second one, it's like detonate's a 3-second ability, right? So it's like it's detonate with a better neutral because you can just walk through things and not get shot, and you do a little bit less damage, but it's still very nice to be able to consistently land your combo, not having to worry about getting staggered, especially from a mage point of view where there's no way to actually prevent that other than the stone form and a few of the blunderbuss perks. So 200 strength, 150 int, 165 con, that's good. 150 strength, 200 con, and then 150 int. The last 15 doesn't really matter where it goes, probably goes into strength. This is good. The way that I am playing this now, which I thought was crazy at first, and I imagine everyone watching this will probably think I'm crazy, but I've been running it like this for 300 con. Part of the reason why I go 300 con now is a change with Void Gauntlet that was not specifically said, but the Void Gauntlet Scream now works off of being 300 con, like that 300 con perk actually elongates this effect, and Heavy also elongates this effect. So my base Scream right now is a 3-second Scream versus a 2-second like it normally is for other people. So that 300 con really helps with that. It also, as like a Deady Point player, I am playing for utility. I'm not playing to do insane kills, not playing to frag out. I am playing to play my life and live on point as much as possible, and that 300 con, you definitely feel it. So that's good for that. I'm mostly copying this from EU because some of the EU guys have been helping me out with this setup since they're just better at the game in terms of the blunderbuss and how it works, since NA was just so far behind the blunderbuss meta and still seems very far behind. This tree doesn't matter as much. I am strictly dropping the Azoth because I think Blast Shot is better utility than Azoth, and I think the Splitting Grenades is better utility, and I think the Net Shot is also better utility. Like, I'm coming at this as I am playing my life and I am staying alive on point, and that is why I'm running this, and it would not run this setup if you are not in heavy and playing on point with this class. With most people, you are still running the old setup where you go, I believe it's like this, and then you have a few flex points here. You usually go one in the net shot. Fast hands is good. Run and gun is good. It's actually really good, but it's
there's a change with blunderbuss that makes run and gun not actually be played, even though it's an insane ability that I'll talk about in a second. And then deep load and ramp are very good. A lot of people go for fortified aggression. I think you have an option here of which one's better. You generally want deep load because it's consistent. I think you either go fast hands, deep ramp, or fortified aggression once you know this trick that I'm about to show you. But that's like the normal way to run blunderbuss now. But the trick with blunderbuss right now, so you shoot twice and then you reload, right? And this is like standard. If I am doing a reload and I pull out the Void Gauntlet and I do 2 basics, and I could swap back to blunderbuss and shoot twice again. And I could also do a like an E or an ability, and I could swap back. Like I think I could throw an orb, swap back, and I have it. Drop an oblivion, swap back, and I have my ammo. So it just reloads on its own much faster than it used to. So there's no there's no reason to use fast hands. It also makes the ramp perk a lot less good. Because once you swap off, you won't be able to use that. So I'd say if you know that trick, you generally want to go this tree. But that's why people run it like that right now. Void Gauntlet, nothing's really changed. Ice Gauntlet, it feels awful to play, and if you are comfortable with Void Gauntlet and Blunderbuss, I would definitely say give Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss a shot. It's a lot easier to play too once you get the Stone Form, and I think Stone Form is justified running it because you don't normally have like a giant escape ability. Like Nutshot's pretty good. It's a lot better than it was before because it's a lot less clumpy, so you won't actually get caught by people behind you as much. So Nutshot's a lot better, so you have better survivability than you had last meta, since people are just inherently declumped a little bit more, and you can nuke people if you build it that way. You could have insane survivability if you build it that way, and you have the utility of the Void Gauntlet and the Blunderbuss all in one player, which inherently makes it a very valuable role. Like if in the ideal world, I think at this point you would slot like 6 to 8 Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss players, and you wouldn't really slot that many Ice Gauntlet players at all, just by the nature of Ice Gauntlet not being that good. It's still the shower is still a very good ability from Ice Gauntlet, but Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss I think has a lot more value, and at least should probably have like 4 to 6 of those in a war at this point if you have people that are flexible that can do it. The other problem with Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss is it's not something that you easily walk into. The perks required to make it work are not very easy to come by. Like you need Scream, you need Orb. It would be really nice to have Diminishing Orb on there, but I would argue it's not a must-have perk at this point because Cleanse is just so uh, not as present as it was before, so you don't need it to strip the Cleanse. But you need Nullifying Oblivion, you need Scream, you ideally want Scream on your Void Gauntlet. The Chain Void I have on here literally doesn't matter for this patch. Next patch that will get me a more ult charge, so it's very, very good. Blunderbuss, nothing's really changed there. I personally run I have the wrong headpiece on. I normally run this headpiece, so my attributes are gonna be a little messed up, but and then with the Plague Splitting Grenade, it's like this is 15%. My argument for why I don't need this on the Blunderbuss is disease is a lot more prevalent and just remains on people anyway. And this is 15%, and if I slot that on my Blunderbuss, and it's like 24%, so I'm getting 9% disease for a whole perk slot on a weapon, it doesn't feel very good to me. And I don't really lose much by running this in my head, so that's why I've put it on armor right now. I think there's an argument for either way. It doesn't matter a ton. Uh, Crippling Blastshot's just a fun perk to have, but you want Flame Attunement now on Blunderbuss, Ice Attunement. You don't get that scaling off your Ice Gauntlet. There's a bug right now too with Ultimate Chill, where it doesn't even work on your secondary weapon. The Ultimate Chill only works on your Ice Gauntlet. So like, Ultimate Chill is just like, I don't know how they could have nerfed it more. Like they basically made it a useless perk, and it will just never be played again unless they change it. So that's kind of sad, but I mean, what could you do about it? We just have to play around it now. So you want Flame Attunement because then you could put more fire damage gems in, and then you could have a fire damage ring ideally, which I don't have because those are really hard to find. Because you usually want Flame Attunement, Invigorated Punishment, and Hardy if you're in heavy, and like that's the only ring that works for that kind of style. And oh my gosh, it's expensive and hard to find. So that's a thing. Void Gauntlet hasn't changed. An Ice Gauntlet, you still usually want Deadly Frost. If you're running Ice Pylon, I think you can justify running Pylon Burst and Ice Gauntlet if you don't have it on armor. Ideally, you want it on armor. Uh, Not a very easy thing to get. I'd say the Ice Pylon, like, craft mods are probably going to go up because it's definitely just significantly better than it used to be, as well as Storm being essentially just pad damage. There is a nice attribute with the Storm where it does help this 200 strength perk, so it is still giving your melees like more damage. But then the Void Gauntlet also does that, and then the Blunderbuss if you're running Blast Shot also does that if you have the perk. There's just like so many ways to activate this 200 perk that I don't really think it's a way to justify Ice Gauntlet at this point. The main thing about Ice Gauntlet, Ice Storm is bugged. It's just pad. You'll get better assists, but I don't think people that run it actually have better util for your army. Ice Shower is still an S tier ability. It got even better than last patch, and it is the best ability Ice Gauntlet has by far. And then Entomb is just feels like RNG if it works or not, and it is very frustrating to play around. So if you're running Ice Gauntlet, it's because of this Ice Shower, which means it's better on defense, where you could prevent people from getting through the gates super easily. But on point, Ice Shower is okay. It is only a 10% rend. There are a lot of things that give a 10% rend. It's mostly used for the slow of people getting through the gate. So I guess that's the whole idea with those. Ult-wise, not a ton has changed. I talked about Stoneform. I think Stoneform is better. I'm gonna hop it over to VOD now and just start playing this in the background from uh yesterday. Probably just I could play the comms.
Looks like we're a little outnumbered.
No, I want to talk over myself. It's like kind of weird. Um, but it flows fairly well, I'd say, with the heavy setup. I was surprised by how survivable it was, and apparently this is a way that EU has been running Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss for a while, and I didn't realize that. Uh, it's would definitely be nice to have the Azoth like shrapnel blast just to do the damage, but this is still a lot of damage and has a lot of util, which is why it's fine and heavy. Might put it on 1.5 because this part was kind of boring. Actually, no, let's just jump into fort. The TLDR of this war is we got rolled outside because we made a really bad rotation, and then we got in the fort. I only had 3 deaths this war. In the previous war, I ran this build, I had like 10. So I'm big time Stoneform fan, even though I think the previous war when I was just getting used to the class, and I did not have this setup where I was running 300 con, and that just makes it so much better in terms of a Dedi point player. But that's something that like EU has over NA. I would have never figured that out if we didn't have people from like EU playing with us on the East Super server, basically. But uh, yeah, I would say this is pretty good. Great Axe wise, if those people are watching these, I don't think anything has really changed. Detonate with the Great Axe is like very strong. Roots with the Great Axe is very strong. Stoneform with the Great Axe is also very strong. It's like hard to tell with Great Axe, it's not that anything is bad with it. It's just finding out what feels best with it. So it's like more personal preference, I'd say. And you definitely need more time. Like I know players in our company like certain ults in certain situations. Like if you're in fort, they like this ult. If you're defending, if you're attacking fort, they like a different ult. If they're like on the point, they like a different ult. And people are like swapping ults mid war now. So it's like very weird, but I'd say Stoneform, Vines, and Detonate are the 3 that people swap between. They do run different kinds of detonates, and people I think are going to start running different kinds of vines because the fortifying vines are actually pretty good as a balance between the stone form and the survivability that you would have from running it in uh from like vines. You don't have a ton of survivability. You tend to pop it and then you just get deleted because you don't have escapes. The stone form, you live. Like here I have stone form. If I get crashed on, I just live. I'm perfectly fine. But that's a good balance. And then but I don't think anything is really changing from detonate. The one that does more damage is good. You have to be worried about how much damage you actually take though. So that there's also the one that gives you empowered, but you have to be I think you have to be worried about empowered cap for that one. So it's like not as insane as people thought it would be. But yeah, let me try to find a spot where I did a funny thing and give my pitch to why Stoneform is good.
believe it was over here. If the internet wants to behave with me, but I'll throw this VOD up in the description probably, maybe in like a day or two, just so we have enough time to implement changes. Actually, it's probably fine at this point because this war got streamed from both perspectives, so those VODs are public. I was on repairs for this one, so you see a lot of that gameplay. A lot of comms are being said about which repairs, and had some funny moments where I think I got 3 B gate repairs off, which should never be happening. I should save this as a clip and then just play it back later. But I mean the TLDR of this is I could just go to I recorded some of these changes, but the stone form you could pop it while you're actually being like knocked on the ground, which inherently makes it like very good. See if this works. Okay, nothing is working from my end of the internet, but oh wait, is that working? But I guess trust me when I say Stoneformer is very good. Or maybe it happens here because he has a great exit. Yeah, I think it happens here. Yeah, it's 10 seconds till his combo. So I'll show this. But this is the biggest reason why I think Stoneform is good, and it just basically hard counters any melee player in the game because you could just walk out of their entire combo, and you could cast it while you're on the ground too. So it inherently makes Stoneform a lot better than people thought it would be. And there's been a lot of testing with this. So he knocks me on the ground, and then I'm staggered there, and I could pop the Stoneform for free, and I could just walk out of his combo, and I'm taking no damage. So that just inherently just lets you live basically every comp in the game and just makes your death so much lower in a war. So would say definitely give that a shot if you haven't. Void Gauntlet Blunderbuss, good in everything. Great Axe Warhammer, still very good. Great Sword, good and seems okay in kill groups, but very underwhelming from in terms of like how it's run. Like you could run Great Sword Warhammer, but you don't really want to drop the Warhammer, because it's just really good in wars. And Great Sword's like okay, but I wouldn't say it's. And no one's figured out a way to make it insane. I think most people are running as a DPS build, not a tank build. With a tank point of view, it's very good. From a DPS point of view, it's okay. So take that and do with it what you will with that. Sword and Shield is definitely better than it used to be, but it's not like god tier. I'd say Blood Gauntlet Blunderbuss is god tier if you play it well. I don't think I've mastered it yet, but I've definitely gotten a lot better than I started off this meta with that. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think. I could talk about some other meta stuff, maybe pull up some runes and do some more gameplay. But, yeah, I'd say just the biggest thing with this is just shoot 2 shots, swap to your Void Gauntlet, press your abilities, swap back, shoot more shots. You can just do this, and then you'll inherently do a lot more with this weapon. And I will see you guys in the next video.